Are you a visionary or a vision setter? You might think that they are the same thing, and in this video, we're going to break down the difference. We always hear that being a visionary is what is needed in leadership. And yes, it is important. And today, as we get into the difference between a visionary and a vision setter, and I would argue that being a vision setter is more important because you can clearly communicate to your team what is needed. Hi, I'm Megan Akatsu. I am a feminine leadership coach. I help women move away from pushing and proving to embodied intuitive leadership. A visionary might say, let's head west. And a vision setter says, we are going to San Francisco and we are going to take the train. That is how we are going to get there. One is setting a direction and the other is setting a destination. I think about this with air travel. You don't get on a plane and say, where do we go today? Where do we want to go? No, you take off from a specific airport and you have a specific destination in mind. Part of that is that both air traffic control towers need to know where you are leaving from and where you are going to, because they need to make sure that the airways are safe. And so if you just take off and aimlessly are just flying around, air traffic and control doesn't know where you're going and therefore can't ensure that other planes are not in your flight path. So in order to do that, you need to have a specific destination. I once worked for a visionary leader and it was so much fun. She was bold and she was decisive and the meetings were always energized. And so we would come up with a great idea in the meeting. I'd be like, okay, this is so fun. All right, I get it. I understand what we're doing. And then I would get back to my desk and I'd be like, wait, why are we doing this? Or are we doing this over 5 years? Is this immediate? Do we have a budget? And then I would have all these questions, but I would get so revved up by her positive energy. And in those moments, either what it would have taken from me if I'm working for a visionary is just to pause and ask a few more questions of clarification. Not because I'm not smart, not because what she was doing was wrong, but I think it would have just helped ground the conversation so that each of us could go off to our respective ways and do the work that needed to be done. When you're working with a vision setter, that vision might be clearer of what is expected for the next steps. Let's say they have this big idea and it's like, okay, team, we're going to go do this. And so it's like, you run this report, you go look at this data, you send me this, and I need it all by Friday. And you're like, okay, got it, okay. And then what happens is you send it. And then let's say the boss in this instance never looks at it, because what the boss is doing in that particular situation, because they're a visionary, they are still sensing into what the next step is. They're like, I have this big idea, but I'm still sensing where we're going to go. And then you, as the employee, might be hurt by that because you're like, I spent all this time. We were so excited in this meeting. I stayed up all night. I made this happen. And now it feels like we're at a standstill, or it feels like the enthusiasm we had on Tuesday is no longer there. Whereas when you work with a vision setter, and let's say you still go run the same data, the same reports, still come back with the same research, a vision setter in that moment can look at the data, look at the report and say, yes, I love this. This is perfect. Or this needs a little bit of tweaking. Or thank you for showing me this, but this actually isn't telling the story that I wanted to tell, and can get back to you right away with feedback because they understand vision and where they're going. And therefore, it's easier then to give that feedback about what steps are needed next. So my question for you today, are you a visionary or are you a vision setter? Thank you so much for following. Please subscribe below. Bye-bye.